Okay, we're rolling, Josh. So
All right. Well,
floor is yours.
welcome everyone to the inaugural AFP Palm Beach County online learning series. And we unfortunately can't be with you in person to share this great information. We were looking forward to having Jayla visit us here in South Florida, but with the beauty of online learning, we can still provide you with this great professional development opportunities. We're very fortunate to be working with our friends from Bloomerang today to provide the art and science of effective gift acknowledgements. If you've never had a chance to come to one of our AFP luncheons, we certainly encourage you to check out and find out more information at afpglobalpbc.org. That's afpglobpbc.org. We've really moved, obviously, all of our education now online with everything happening, but still want to provide that membership connection. Tomorrow, we've been starting something on Wednesdays. It's called Connections and Coffee with AFP PBC. It's a chance for you to just get 30 minutes of interacting, no agenda learning from one another. It's a great opportunity for you just to have a conversation with someone in the field who's going through what you're going through right now. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to my friend Jay to share with us the art and science of effective gift acknowledgements.
Well, thank you very much, Josh. I look forward to presenting today. Just to give you a little bit more background on myself, I started working with nonprofits via technology in 1982. So it's the 38th year of being involved with that, primarily working with the technology involved with database installations, as you can see from the slide there for that. I've been involved with a much older product, one of the very first PC-based products called FundMaster, then eTapestry, now Bloomerang. But one of the key things that you see the lovely lady there, my wife Christy of 43 years, and some of our grandchildren there with us for it, is she convinced me about 30 years ago to really start giving back and becoming involved with local nonprofits in the Indianapolis area, as well as some. We have a home in Southwest Florida also, and also on a national scale. One of the things I had the very good fortune of doing is chairing the AFP Ethics Committee for a 4-year period and being involved with that. And as you can see, some of the other nonprofit affiliations have been involved with. My wife, Christy, and I co-chaired the YMCA Capital Campaign about 4 years ago or 5 years ago. So that was an experience where I got to really be on the other side of the desk and look at things from your viewpoint. We're going to be exploring many different subjects today, but one of the things that I always touch upon in all my presentations is donor retention. And with the help of Stephen on our team, we put together a book called Stay Together on Donor Retention. And you'll see my email address there, j.love@bloomerang.co. If you would like to have a copy of these slides or a copy of the book, just send me a quick email and I'll make sure that we get that sent to you right away so that you can enjoy that. I'll pop those up back at the end too, that you can make that come to life and get a copy yourself. So what truly makes effective gift acknowledgements? That was the question that was asked, and we really turned to two experts to work with this. We've got a really strong affiliation with Dr. Adrian Sargent and also with Jen Shang. Jen has her doctorate in philanthropy and psychology, one of the few people in the world to do that. And toward the end of this presentation today, I'll be sharing some actual case studies that they did with a couple of the large national organizations that will really help you with this time. Because as we're in this COVID-19 virus time period, communications with our donors and prospective donors is of such critical nature for that. And my goal today with our session here is that each of you attending will have 3 to 4 to 5 items that you can go back and implement sometime in the next 90 days for that. You'll see as part of the Zoom, you can chat with us. If you have a question anytime as we move along through the presentation today, just let us know. Just go ahead and chat the question in. Stephen will pause me for a second and we'll take your question as we go. So if you have any, just feel free to jump right in there. I want to acknowledge the people that were involved with this research project. This was a project that took place 2 years ago. And Bloomerang, our company that Stephen and I are part of, was very intimately involved with this, as well as a group out of Texas by the name of Pursuant. And then the Institute for Conversational Fundraising out of Oklahoma. So it had sort of a middle of the country feel to this, with the 3 core sponsors providing the funding that allowed us to move this project to the forefront. So why focus on gift acknowledgements? We think about the process so much of the time. So many online training sessions and conference sessions are about the gift appeal and the ask process and et cetera for that. But why focus on the gift acknowledgements for that? And I think we can point back to a landmark study that was done by Dr. Sargent to the lapsed donors of 10 major national US-based nonprofits. And in this particular study, the respondents were asked to check the reasons for stopping their contributions. Why did they become a lapsed donor for this organization? And you'll see here, these were the percentage of responses. Now, obviously it adds up to more than 100% there, because people could pick more than one response if they felt like it was appropriate for that. But as I look through and walk you through this, I'm going to highlight in red here, just think about how many of these have to do with the donor communication process. 5% thought the charity no longer needed them. 8% had no information of how the monies were being used and therefore didn't feel as closely appreciated. 9% had no memory of ever supporting the organization. 13% actually stated that they never got thanked for donating. As you can see, all those add to the communication process there. 16% could not give again because of death, because obviously a lot of our donors are of an older age. 18% felt poor service or communication was the problem. 36% of them felt that others were more deserving. And then the largest one was 54% felt that they could no longer afford to make that donation. So as we can see there, all but 2 of the reasons highlighted were about the communications process. Now, if we flip it onto the other side here and talk about why people give to nonprofits, there was another sort of landmark study that was done of 1,200 recent donors to over 250 nonprofits, and they were asked to list their reasons why they would continue to give to that organization. And then we ranked those 32 reasons by the order of importance. So I picked out the top 7 here. And as you can see again, the majority of those really revolve around the communication and building of the relationship with the donor. So as you can see here, number 1, the donor perceives the organization as producing outcomes. I sort of think that really revolves around communication in and of itself too, because how you communicate how those outcomes are being reached is a key part of that. Donor knows what to expect with each interaction. Number 3, donor receives a timely thank you. Number 4, donor receives opportunities to make their views known. Sort of draw a circle around that in your mind, because we're going to talk a little bit further and compare the commercial world and the commercial businesses and how they work with their customers and comparing it to the nonprofit world, because that opportunity to make their views known via surveys, there are some very key differences that we see happening there. Donor feels like they're part of an important cause. Next one, number 6, donor feels like his or her involvement is appreciated. So as you can see, everything that we can do in the acknowledgement process really builds upon these key reasons why a donor stays with you year after year after year. And then finally, number 7, donor receives information showing who is being helped. Sort of ties into the first one there with producing outcomes. So that's what we found from the studies here. And I think we can sort of wrap a bow around it and say that the gift acknowledgement is a critical to donor retention success, and retaining donors, particularly in a time like we're in right now, is very critical to the whole survival of many of the nonprofits that we have the honor of working with, and many of you that are out there on the webinar today. Let's compare what donor retention is looking like for that. I had the good fortune of being one of the very first contributors to the fundraising effectiveness project that's now under the wing of the AFP, the Association of Fundraising Professionals, for that. And here are the latest results there. The average donor retention, it was 45.5%. First-time donor retention, 31.8. Now take a good look at those, because the latest results that are about to be unveiled, I'm going to give you a glimpse of those, and you're going to see that those both dropped rather precipitously in the most recent time period. Take a look at what happens after someone makes their second gift. They move up to a repeat donor percentage of 64%, and then those that are giving on a monthly or recurring basis are retained at a 90% or larger retention rate. So keep in mind how important that is, because the recapture rate is also falling. So the ability to go back and recapture somebody that's lapsed for a year or 2 or 3 is getting harder and harder. We're now down to nearly just 5% are able to ever be recaptured. So that means that once they've fallen off that donor retention ladder there, the ability to do that, you got 95% of them that are not able to be retained anytime in the future. Okay, so let's take a look at what's happening here in 2020. The retention is down to 42.1% on the average. Notice the big difference. The brand new donors are down to less than 20% now, 19.8. The repeat held pretty steady there, close to 63%. So therein lies one of the key reasons for effective gift acknowledgements and some of the things that we want to put in practice to make that come to life. So why does the commercial sector have rates that are double the nonprofit sector? And what I'm referring to there, the average customer retention rate hovers for most commercial businesses right around 90%. So roughly twice the 42 to 44 to 45% donor retention rate for that. One of the key reasons for that is the ability to survey quickly and easily for that. I know we're not traveling like we were, but anytime that someone stays at a hotel, rents a car, purchases a appliance, purchases a phone, anything like that, you're going to get a survey usually within 24 to 48 hours. This was one. I was in London for a board meeting at a new hotel chain I never stayed at before by the name of Mercure. And right before I was going into my board meeting that morning, this popped into my email. I had checked out about 45 minutes earlier, and you can see they were giving me the opportunity to share my thoughts and my feedback about my experience with them. And I always love to use an example that came from our friends at Charity Water. For that, they do a wonderful job of surveying their donors, and this was a quick survey that was made regarding a $10 donation that had been made in the previous year. And as you can see, the survey is not exhaustive in any way, shape, or form. It's nice and simple. It said, number 1, how would you rate your experience in receiving an email update on your donation? And you had 1 of 5 options ranging from very satisfied to very dissatisfied. This obviously gives them a way to set up different segments based upon how people are reacting to the survey, and all of their future communications would be based upon those segments. What was your favorite, least favorite part, so you can get, something that someone actually typed in there. And then, as you see with so many surveys, both in the commercial and nonprofit sector, how likely are you to purchase from us or to donate again or to volunteer again with our charity? And you can see the 5 options appear also, from very likely to not sure to definitely not for that. And as you can imagine, for an organization that's doing this properly, all of their future communications and their future acknowledgements are often based upon which segment that people place themselves into for that. So I'm going to pause for a minute and get a quick drink here. Are there any questions that have come in so far from anybody that using the chat?
Yeah, Jay, one question on the retention stats. Are donors to events counted in those stats? I think those are any source, right?
Yes, they are. And that is one of the reasons why we are so far behind the commercial sector. Event and memorial tribute donors are part of those stats. And we all know that sometimes people that are invitees to sit at somebody's table or to play in someone's group or to participate via peer-to-peer fundraising activity for an event, those people are very, very hard to retain because their relationship is also often with the person that's being memorialized or tributed, or someone that's participating in the event that's separate from themselves. So those numbers are in there, and that is one of the reasons why for most organizations the retention rate stays below 50%. Any other questions that have come in so far, Stephen?
That's all for now.
Okay, if anybody else has questions as we go along, we'll have a Q&A period at the end, but feel free to ask them as we move along. So what does an effective gift acknowledgement look like? I thought I would pull some of the favorite examples that Stephen and myself have had with some various nonprofits around the country for that. Some of the age-old wisdoms of thank yous is that we get them out fast, usually within a 48-hour period. They are personal in some way, shape, or form. They are segmented so that we're treating first-time donors perhaps differently than repeat donors. Maybe larger donors are above our average gift size, different than people that are smaller donors for that. They can be multi-channel. Sometimes we're reaching out in both the mail and electronically or via the phone and other mechanisms too. And the best part of the age-old wisdom is that we've got a documented communication cadence. So we are making sure that as we respond to somebody, it's not just one quick thank you and we're done. We've got a step-by-step process to keep a communications flow going with those donors. Here are some of the examples that I've seen here. Obviously, one of the very best examples of personalizing something is a handwritten note that accompanies the tax receipt or the regular thank you letter. Any sort of handwritten note always raises the donor retention by the greatest percentage, time after time, study after study. So anytime that you can make that come to life is a very good way to differentiate yourself from other people and other gift acknowledgements that are being done by other nonprofits in your area for that. It's not uncommon for people when they received a handwritten note to say that is the reason why, the exact very reason that they gave again, because someone cared enough to do that for you. So anytime you can build that into your communication cadence, it can make such a big difference. Some other examples, we now have this wonderful little camera that's part of our smartphone that you can use anytime, that you can personalize something much like a phone call or a voicemail, but it's a short video where you're actually thanking somebody and telling them where their dollars are going to be going to work for that. So this was one that Stephen shared. When you get a copy of your slides, you can actually play this one and do it, but this was from an organization where a donation was made and they did a personalized outreach to you. One of my favorite ones is from a private school in Indianapolis by the name of the Oaks Academy, and they compare your first-time giving to the various firsts that children in their school have, such as their first day, their first field trip, their first memories, and it's an actual welcome package that comes to you. So I encourage you, you can see the contact information there. I know Nathan, a good mutual friend of Stephen and mine, would not mind if you made a very small gift just to see what the welcome package looks like for them, but they do a wonderful job of putting that together and gives you some ideas of what a welcome package could look like for not only first-time donors, but donors coming back for a second or third gift in some situations. I love this one here. If you can read the first part of the letter here, this is from a public school foundation in upstate New York. And as you can see here, their reply to the person donating to the fund was, "You are magnificent. Your gift supports so many different things for that." And what they actually did, if someone's gift amount was of a certain level, they actually shared with them and sent to them as part of their welcome kit the Dr. Seuss book, "Oh, the Places You'll Go," and they tied all of their messaging into that. And it was a very good campaign. And I can tell you firsthand, the Skenattle's School Foundation is one of our customers, and they have a much higher than average donor retention rate. So the practices and items that they're putting into play here are really coming to life and making that happen for their organization. Keep in mind when you're sending something out electronically, make it easy for people to share it via social media. You can see for this group, College Mentors for Kids, they make it very easy for you to share that you're donating to their organization with Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, etc. So anytime you can make that part of your follow-up, that makes it very easy to get additional communications going out and additional publicity surrounding that if the donor feels like sharing that for you. One of the ways I always talk about, and then we're going to go into the actual case studies from this, the study that was done, is to suggest some basic segmentation of your thank you letters for that. And one of the simplest ways to do this is to think about just dividing your thank you segments into 4. And what we're going to take a look at, that horizontal line that you see going across there, is based upon the average gift amount. So if your average gift amount happens to be, let's say, $125, anybody whose gift is above that line is in the top 2 segments. Anybody below that is in the bottom 2 segments. And then we're going to divide the left quadrant from the right quadrant based upon whether they're a first-time donor or a repeat donor. So what you can do is sit down with your team or with your board or with your fundraising committee and design your communication pattern or sequence for each of the 4 segments. And what you can decide then is, for instance, if somebody's in the upper left segment there, they're a new donor that for the first time and they're above the average gift amount, one of the things that we always highly suggest is that one deserves a phone call, particularly from someone higher up in your organization, perhaps your CEO or executive director for that. And then you can design and map out a strategy, because if you keep some of these best practices in mind, you want to have a style and a story for each of the segments. For some of the segments, you may want to include handwritten notes or handwritten PSs because you're going to extend the outreach and continue building a stronger relationship with that. One of the nice things you can do is test these. Every month or so, pick one of the segments and try something new. Or every 3 months, pick a segment there and say, for instance, my repeat donors that are below the average gift amount, maybe I'm going to do a handwritten envelope versus a typewritten or a label on the envelope for my thank you letter, and see if the retention rate or the next gift amount is of a higher level. So you can do your testing, and over the course of time, make sure you figure out what's working best in each of your segments. Now, you may have just 4 like we talk about there, but you may have 6, 7, 8 or more segments that you're working with. Personalize as much as possible. If you're using a database product, this should be very easy to do. I always talk about one of my favorite personalizations. If I'm in this segment here of repeat donors, whether it's above or below the average gift amount, one of the items I always talk about is I love it when my thank you letter tells me what the total amount of lifetime giving and the total amount of impact I've had on that organization. And my wife, Christy, and I support 15, 16 organizations on an annual basis with an annual donation. For that, only 2 of those organizations tell us what our total lifetime giving is. And I just think that is such a wonderful way to share and encourage me to continue having major impact with that organization going on in the future. So I don't know whether any of you out there have used that particular ability to personalize, but I think you'll find if you test that, that might be something that works well for your constituency for that. One of the things that we learned from the acknowledgement study that we're going to be going into, that you want to strive for 3 touches in the first 90 days. That is the critical period. Most people decide whether they're going to give to your organization by the 91st day a second time or not. So that is key to doing that. Always try to convert as many of your donors, particularly those repeat donors, into monthly donor or quarterly giving donors for that. We know that the retention rates for those are the very, very highest. And make sure your acknowledgement communication plan fits into the overall communication plan. So you want to make sure that you're not communicating with somebody twice in the same week. If you can make sure that the communication plans mesh together and does not cause problems with your overall communication plan. Stephen, any questions that have come in on any of the segmentation principles before we dig into the key aspects of the study itself?
Yeah, we had one. Curious your take on this, Jay. When you're sending kind of these nice thank yous, maybe a welcome kit, something that has multiple pieces in it, perhaps, or that looks like it took some time. How do you kind of deal with maybe the feedback that, hey, I don't want to be thanked this elaborately if it's taking away from the mission? It seems like you would certainly honor that request, but would you let that stop you from doing it for other people if they weren't giving you that feedback? What do you, I mean, you've been a donor. What do you think?
Well, yeah, I would certainly reach out to that individual donor. That such feedback is just begging for a personal conversation. So you can talk with them and try to find out about that. Now, you may have a situation where you've got a welcome kit that does seem to be elaborate, but you could also perhaps have the chance to explain where that came from. Maybe you've got a board member who produces those and has donated that and said, this is my way of helping in addition to my annual gift. I want to make sure that we have some of the nicest welcome gift packages, and you can actually tell the organization it's not coming out of any of your funds. It was an extra gift made by a board member or something of that nature, if there is such a story there. I think you want to take that in total consideration and see if that's the feeling from some of your other donors too. And perhaps there is a reason to scale that back if it is too elaborate in some situations for that. But I would, first of all, like I said at the very beginning, make sure you take that opportunity to have a personal conversation over the telephone or through an online mechanism like we're using today, like Zoom, to make that come to life. Any other questions, Stephen?
No, that was the only one for that section.
Okay, good. Let's move on here then for that. So let's talk about what this research brought toward us. When you think about gift acknowledgements, there's very seldom do we tend to look at the future instead of the near term, where we're just trying to get the thank you letter out for that. I often tell the story back in the days where I had customers using in-house software systems. I was conducting a user group meeting in Chicago for that, and I was going to have about 75 organizations come to this school. We were going to actually meet during the summer in one of the classrooms, and I decided to go ahead and get to this organization early because I had actually helped them implement their database solution about 3 years earlier. And when I got there, they were printing out the thank you letters, and much to my shock, it was the same exact thank you letter I had helped them load in 3 years earlier, and they were sending the same thank you letter without any segmentation whatsoever. So we had a little lesson about that for it, and we talked about what the impact of that could be into the future there, rather than just worrying about getting that out. So you'll see as we talk about a couple of the case studies here that these organizations are doing some things now to prepare for the appeal and the acknowledgement a little bit further down the road. Ask for feedback. Once again, tying back to the survey, we found that the organizations that are asking for feedback and are able to fine tune it really have the best gift acknowledgements possible. Speak to the impact of the gift. We talked about that a little bit earlier. Try to be as donor-centered as possible, with very few exceptions. And bear in mind that the acknowledgement process doesn't have to be tied to just the most recent gift. It could be tied to other actions, such as a volunteer activity, or the, as you'll see from one of the study participants here, they were thanking people for signing a pledge or for attending a rally or something of that nature. So let's jump into the research here and see if it raises some questions. We're going to talk about 2 gift acknowledgement experiments that took place here as part of that. The first, and this research was done back in November of 2018 for that by Jen and Adrian for that. The research goals, they wanted to take a look at, with multiple national organizations, Should we be thanking donors for their gift, or the differences they made, or the kind of person that they are, or the kind of person that they would like to be? I think you can sort of see some of Jen's psychology training coming into play here that might allow us to have a little bit of a metamorphosis of the common thank you process that we've seen in the past. And how do each of these approaches up above make people feel? Because how people feel truly is one of the biggest indicators of whether they're going to be a long-term supporter and donor to your organization year after year after year. So one of the research participants, I think, summed it up. It's not just thanking, it's kind of loving on me that makes the difference. So can we position ourselves that more of our donors feel like this, rather than the fact that it's just the perfunctory thank you that's coming to them? So the first test was done by the Brady Campaign to Prevent Gun Violence. I'm sure many of you have heard of this organization, quite a nationwide reach of supporters that they have. And in this particular test, what they did was, rather than having people, having an appeal go out, they asked individuals to sign a petition for better gun control laws for them. And anybody that was willing to sign, and this was all done virtually, it's done with electronic communications, anybody that participated in the process, not only signing it themselves, but forwarding it on to other people, those signers were thanked for their participation in this act of working with the petition. They were then sent a survey asking about their feelings of participating in this process. So you can see here, this is the thank you for participating, and I'll just sort of read portions of it out loud here. Thank you, thank you, thank you for signing the Brady petition to oppose the Arm Anyone bill. By signing to oppose the bill, you've joined an army of thousands of passionate people who care, who also stood up and said they've had enough with the more than 33,000 people who die every year from gun violence. Together, we stand up to end that. Your support made all of us here at Brady feel very, very good about what we do. Thank you. In gratitude, we were wondering if there's anything else that we could be doing for you. Would you be willing to take this survey for it? And so there was a short 3-question survey that was part of it. And those people that participated in the petition, that were thanked and were surveyed, their survey actively stated that they were doubling the degree to which they would be willing to donate later. So as you can see there, any action that someone takes, whether they're a volunteer for you in some way, shape, or form, or they participate electronically. I know we've got to adapt these now with what's going on with the COVID-19 virus, but anything you can do to survey them and to thank them for their involvement in other ways besides donations prior to your next appeal can make a huge difference in the results that were coming for that. And those results really did pan out to display that. Any questions about that first test that was done, Stephen? Anybody have anything that come in?
Not yet, but I'll keep my eyes peeled.
Thank you. All righty. Let's talk about the next organization. The next group was Planned Parenthood. And let's talk about the study that was done for them. What they did, they decided for previous donors, they were going to send a thank you letter out prior to the next appeal or renewal letter. Some of the people they sent these to were lapsed donors. Some of them were donors that had just made their gift in the last year. But this was sent out about a month and a half before the next appeal was going to take place for that. And they did it in 2 test groups. Half of the people that were previous donors got the letter thanking them again, and half did not. And obviously, it's a sort of a leading question: which group do you think gave more in the subsequent appeal? What we had here is in the thank you letter, they spelled out what they were thanking them for. Thanks to their gift, they were not able, they did not have to turn away a single patient. They were here to hold every hand, and et cetera. You can see sort of the body of part of the letter there that was sent to them for that. And then the other group, so the placebo group, did not get any letter as part of that. And here are the actual results for the average gifts. Those that received the email thank you prior to the appeal gave an average of $45 more than those who did not. And it was an overall 67% increase in giving just by doing this priming the pump exercise of just sending out a thank you letter. And for some of those people, that was more than 6 months later than the original thank you letter that was done. So it's an idea that all of you out there, no matter what size, can give it a try and see if this would make a difference in your next appeal by going ahead and talking about the results of the gift coming in prior to that and giving them a bit of an update and a second thank you as part of the process. So as one of the research participants said here, if the donor does not feel actually thanked, the acknowledgement has failed, even though it may produce a second gift. So we're wanting to make sure that we help every donor to your organization feel fully thanked and fully appreciated as we start to build that relationship with them. So if you would like to have the full report on the gift acknowledgement, there were other facets of the study. There's a lot of other tidbits and takeaways for that. That URL that you see listed there gives you the full report. I think it's about 45 pages in length that will dig into the various parts of it and show you the full examples and the full results. Even will give for those folks that are real statistics geeks the standard deviation of what happened from each of the test as they unfolded for you. I also want to point you to some of the resources that are at our Bloomerang website. We've got some email thank you letter templates out there that I think might be useful, that you can see both for written and electronic communications that are out there at those links that you see faster there. We've also pointed out, with the help of Tom Ahern and Kibby LaRue Miller, how thank you letters can be broken into the various segments that you see listed there, and some of the do's and don'ts and some of the best examples out there. Stephen, anything you want to add to what they will find in our resource section of the website?
Yeah, there's lots of really cool templates on there, all free and all downloadable. We'll send the links out with the slides to all those things as well.
Yeah. For many, many years, we actually gave out awards. We called them Bloomies, and you'll see some of the past award winners there too. So chock full of good information that you can tune into. One of the things before we leave, in this day and age of doing everything remotely, I wanted you to know that I personally had the opportunity, in conjunction with Dr. Sargent and some other leaders in online education, to create the fundraising standard. It's an 8-week fundraising course that allows anybody that participates in that to earn half of the needed CFRE credit for achieving your CFRE. So it's an 8-week course. You can find out all about it at fundraisingstandard.org for that. It takes 3 to 4 hours per week to participate in the course. There are online tutors that are working with you. And to date, we have now had over 500 individuals go through the training in the last 18 to 20 months for that. So if you get a chance, please check it out. I think you'll find it to be a great way, particularly if you're a seasoned fundraiser and you want to help a brand new person on your staff, or you're working with a smaller nonprofit that's involved in fundraising for the very first time. This is a great way for them to learn all of the key basics and all the functions associated with professional fundraising. So we're at our full Q&A period now. For that, as I said, if you would like to have a copy of the slides or a copy of the Stay Together book, just please email me and we'll make sure that Stephen or myself gets those out to you. But if you don't mind, just go ahead and use the chat function now. Are there any questions that you have regarding the gift acknowledgement and donor relationship process that we've alluded to here in the last 45 minutes?
Jay, we had a couple people ask about the power of the phone call. Any thoughts on actually picking up the phone and calling some folks? I know Josh has been doing a little bit of that. Maybe he can chime in, but
Yeah, I am a huge believer in that. What was interesting, each quarter, I hope we can still participate this once we're all back at work, but our company, Bloomerang, would volunteer at a Central Indiana nonprofit. And a lot of times, we were able to send anywhere from 50 to 75 people to go volunteer for a day or two. And one of the volunteer activities we participated in was with the local Boys and Girls Club. And one of our team members, a young lady by the name of Katie, participated in that and made a first gift of $25 to the organization to support a special project that they talked about with us in the volunteer indoctrination period that we had for that. And what was great about that, and the reason I bring the story up, Katie literally went around to almost every other employee a week later. She had received a phone call from a member of the fundraising team. I came to find out later that it was actually a collegiate intern that called and thanked her. It was about a 30-second voicemail message that thanked her for the gift, told her exactly what the project was, and invited her to come down in a month or two and see the results of the project that she had donated to. This was the first time that Katie, even though she was in her mid-30s and had donated to other nonprofits, this was the very first time she'd ever received a phone call or a voicemail message. And she was so excited about it that she shared it with all of her fellow employees. So Stephen, I really do believe that anytime that you can build a phone call, or what's most likely to occur, a voicemail message into your follow-up process for each of your segments, I think you'll see some very big impact. One of the best ways to verify that is to pick one of the segments and every other person make a phone call to, and then track and see what is the retention rate and what is the average gift rate increase for the second gift from those people between the two groups. So hopefully that answers the question regarding the phone call. Stephen or Josh, do you have anything else you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, Jay, do you mind if I show that research real quick we did last month on the phone calls?
No, go right ahead.
We this is actually less than a month old. There had been some kind of sparse research on the effects of phone calls. There had been, it's in Penelope Burke's research that comes out every year. There was some research out of the UK that was saying, the phone call, if you do it quickly, it's really effective. And we wanted to see in the Bloomerang customer cohort, is that actually playing out? And what we found is it was really impactful. We looked at people who recorded thank you phone calls on the constituent profiles in Bloomerang for new donors specifically versus the folks who weren't making phone calls to their new donors. And we found that the retention rates almost doubled for new donors if they had gotten at least one or two phone calls within that first 90 days. So one of the reasons Jay in his slides was mentioning that kind of 90-day window, we saw that bore out in our customer base. So not only did retention rates increase, but that second gift size also increased, actually almost doubled in the cases where the new donors were getting the phone calls. And that second gift came in faster than folks who did make second gifts but were not called. So we really were able to sort of back up all of that prevailing phone call research, especially for brand new donors. So thinking about Jay's kind of quadrant section with the 4 squares, to me, anyone on the first time side, I would try to call those people if you get a phone number.
Right.
We weren't recommending that people go and like hunt people's phone numbers down necessarily, but if they got a phone number and it was a new donor, these organizations were calling and seeing really, really good results. So, and I think the phone is probably even more powerful now because some people still got to get mail out. Certainly email is still there, but that handwritten piece may be a little bit more diminished because of the quarantine.
You certainly have a very good chance right now, Stephen, of catching somebody at home. So it could be a very, very effective tool. Good. Did we have another question or two?
Yeah, a couple of questions on the surveys. Maria was wondering how you should segment surveys specifically. I think she was kind of combining maybe two pieces of your advice, Jay. I love this question because we recommend, I'm going to actually pull up Bloomerang, Jay, while you answer, but we recommend segmenting the surveys, at least in 3 categories. Can you kind of roll through those?
Yes, yes. What you want to do is, as you do your surveys for that, we have found that if you break it into the 3 segments, brand new donors, a survey to them, which is going to be different. Existing donors, people that are still giving on a regular basis to you, and lapsed donors, because there are very different things that you want to find out as far as their personal feelings to you, particularly between the lapsed and the brand new donors for that. And see, so what Stephen has brought up there, we actually, as part of our Bloomerang software, have a built-in survey tool that allows you just to very easily do that, and it knows which people fall into each of the segments, and they get the appropriate survey. And then, more importantly, as those results come in, it breaks them into segments based upon their intimacy with your organization to do that. So hopefully that gives you at least 3 segments that you would like to have for that. Now, you could always take each of the 3 segments, and if you wanted to really get even more scientific with your surveys, divide it into people that are above and below the average gift amount in each one of those. So you could go from 3 to 6 very easily too.
And the questions are different, right? Like the new donor survey is, you know, maybe the new donor survey would ask like about the donor, whereas an existing survey could be, you know, how are we doing thanking you? How would you rate the communications you're getting from us? And the lapsed donor survey is, you know, why'd you stop giving? Did we not thank you well enough? You know, is something happening in your financial life? So that's the power of the segmenting to me, is you can ask different questions in kind of a contextual way based on what kind of person is in that segment.
And do we have on our resource page some examples of survey questions?
Yeah, we've got a whole ebook on it. Actually, I'll send that in the chat. Yeah, you can learn even if you're not using Bloomerang, but if you're a Bloomerang user, you can just kind of turn this on and the surveys get sent out, and it'll tell you how people are answering in all those categories. You can kind of change your efforts. Deborah was asking what kind of results or response rates we get from the surveys. I think it's like around 10%. Like it's not a ton of people that answer the surveys. I think the real power is the people who do. They're inherently showing you that they're engaged, right? Because they're filling out a survey. But then also the answers they give you can kind of empower you to communicate to them better. And you can sort of infer that maybe other people who didn't answer the survey would benefit from those changes.
Exactly.
Also.
And the other thing you can infer, in fact, we've proven with for the testing with the future appeals, even though someone is part of the 90% that did not answer the survey, the mere fact that you sent that and they saw it, it plays into whether or not they are going to be a donor with you in the future. So don't forget that just like I'm sure that each of us have had surveys coming to us from the commercial sector. We didn't actually take the time, or they caught us at a bad time, we couldn't participate in it. But we realized that that particular car dealer or that particular retailer or that particular hotel or travel company that we were dealing with took the time to survey us and cares about that. So all of a sudden, it placed them in a little bit different category on whether or not, when we have a choice to make in the future, we will remember that. So don't be too dismayed with the 10% or 12% participation rate. You're still having a much bigger effect that on literally, 30 to 40 to 50% of the people that are out there.
Yeah, I think Roger Craver also, he released a study saying that even if they didn't answer the survey, it still increased engagement just receiving it. And we see that bore out in all the other research you shared too, Jay. So the surveys are great. We love it.
Good question.
Yeah,
Good.
Awesome question from Maria. That's all the questions. Any maybe further thoughts from Josh before we close it out? Because he's been doing some interesting stuff too, I know. I want to put him on the spot.
Yeah, you can put me on the spot. I mean, now is the time to be reaching out to our donors. We're all home.
So
we're
true.
all in front of our phones. More specifically, don't really even ask to say thank you. Just ask to check in, like a simple, just like wellness call from your friends at XYZ organization. See how they're doing. Obviously, it's not an ask. It's not necessarily a recognition of donation. It's just, we're in this together, and how can we as an organization support you with whatever you're going through? Because I tell you what, once it's time to start giving again, they're going to remember that interaction they had with you during this crisis, and then how you were supportive for your organization.
Good. Well, Stephen, thanks for chatting out the resources there to everybody. Josh and all the team there at AFP Palm Beach, thank you so much for having me in this virtual way. I'm so sad I didn't get a chance to come down there and enjoy some of your weather this week, but let's make sure that we do that next year, perhaps, Josh.
Let's make that happen, Jay. Absolutely. You're always welcome down here.
All righty. Well, thank you, everybody. And like I said, if you would like to have a copy of the slides so that you have quick and easy access to the links, or a copy of the book, just let us know. Otherwise, thank you for taking nearly an hour of your time in this busy time of the year for that. Good luck with all of you getting ready for the new Giving Tuesday that's coming up on May 5th. I hope that everything prospers for you in that endeavor.